has a sound that comforts most people. For Nayla, it only reminded her of the night her brother vanished. It had been raining the same way then, long, soft, endless. And ever since, every time it rained, she swore she could hear him calling her name in the distance. Now, 7 years later, she'd returned to her hometown, a small, forgotten valley where rain never seemed to stop and where the air smelled of wet rust and memories. She was only supposed to stay for one night to sell her late parents' old house. But the moment she unlocked the front door, the sound hit her. A soft knocking echoing from somewhere outside, perfectly in sync with the rain. At first she thought it was the storm, until it knocked 3 times, steady, deliberate, exactly the way her brother used to every time he came home. Knock, knock, knock. Pause. It's me, open up. Her breath caught. She stepped out onto the porch, rain soaking her hair. But the street was empty. No cars, no footsteps, just the hiss of rainfall and the flicker of the old street light at the corner. Then, faintly through the curtain of rain, she heard a voice. Nayla. It was distant, muffled, but it sounded exactly like him. She called back, trembling. Aram. Silence. Then the voice again, closer this time. You came back. Her flashlight flickered, and for a split second, she saw a figure standing at the edge of the driveway, tall, still, facing her. When the lightning flashed again, he was gone. She turned and ran back inside, slamming the door, and that's when she noticed something impossible. Her shoes were already wet before she stepped outside. Water prints led from the door toward her bedroom. The sound of dripping water echoed through the house, soft, slow, each drop landing somewhere deeper inside. Nyla stood frozen in the doorway, her flashlight trembling in her hand. Rain hammered the roof, but inside, it was too quiet, the kind of silence that listens back. She looked down. The footprints led across the dusty wooden floor, pale and clear. Bare footprints, not shoes. Wet, shining under the light. And they led straight to her brother's old room. Her throat tightened. That door hadn't been opened since the night he disappeared. Every time she tried before, the handle refused to turn, like it was stuck in the past. Now it was open a crack, just enough for the faint smell of wet soil to slip through. She whispered, Aram. Her voice felt small, swallowed by the walls. No answer. Only the creak of the floorboards ahead, like someone shifting their weight slowly from one foot to another. She took a step closer. The air grew colder. The rain outside began to slow down until each drop felt heavier, more deliberate, like time itself was dragging. When she reached the door, she pushed it gently open. It didn't resist this time. It welcomed her. Inside, the room was exactly as she remembered it. Old posters still on the wall, books half open on the desk, and on the window glass, raindrops streaming down like thin, glistening tears. She raised the flashlight. For a moment, everything was still. Then she saw it. Her handprint on the inside of the window, fresh, wet, and right beside it, written in the condensation, "Let me in." Her breath hitched. She stepped back, shaking her head, and then the rain outside stopped, completely. But the sound of rainfall didn't. It was still echoing, inside the room, like someone was standing just out of sight, dripping wet, breathing slow. Nyla turned, and in the reflection of the dark glass, she saw a figure standing behind her, soaked, barefoot, smiling faintly. "You finally heard me," it whispered. The light flickered once, and when it came back, the figure was gone. Only puddles remained, and the faint, wet sound of footsteps moving down the hall. Nyla stood in the doorway, her heart pounding in her throat. The house was breathing again. Every wall seemed to hum with a quiet, rhythmic vibration, like the sound of rain trapped inside the wood. She followed the trail of puddles into the hallway. They glistened faintly under her flashlight, leading straight toward the living room window, the one that faced the old garden. Outside, the rain had started again, but it wasn't raining everywhere, only in a narrow line. A single column of rain fell from the black sky, just enough to soak the figure standing in it. The rest of the street was completely dry, not a single drop beyond that spot. Her voice broke. Aram. The figure turned slowly. Even through the downpour, she could see his face. Pale, trembling, lips slightly parted. He looked younger, the way he had before he vanished. But something in his eyes wasn't right. They were too still, too reflective. He raised a hand and pressed it to the window from the outside. A faint smile crept across his face. You can hear it too now, can't you? What? She whispered. The rain that never stops. The glass fogged up between them, and then the droplets on the window began to move. Not slide, move. Each one dragging itself upward against gravity, forming thin, shining trails, till they curved into letters. Let it in. Nyla stumbled back, shaking her head, whispering, No, no. The sound of rainfall began to grow louder, not outside, but inside her ears, like it was leaking through her. She dropped the flashlight. Its beam rolled across the floor, catching something near her feet. A second shadow, not hers, standing directly behind her. The air turned heavy, wet, suffocating. A voice brushed against her ear, warm and cold at once. You locked me out too long, Nayla. She spun around, and for the first time, she saw his face clearly, pale, soaked, eyes completely black, raindrops slipping from his skin like he was made of the storm itself. But what terrified her most wasn't his face. It was his reflection in the glass behind him. It was smiling, even though he wasn't. Then lightning struck. The windows shattered, and rain flooded into the house. The storm had entered the house. It didn't burst in like a flood. It crept in, seeping through the cracks, dripping down the wallpaper like veins of living water. Nyla screamed and ran to shut the door, but the wood was breathing. Every knock of her hand sent ripples through it, as if she were touching the surface of a pond. The floor was slick with rain now, but it wasn't clear water. It shimmered faintly blue in the light, glowing like the reflection of a sky that didn't exist. And in that reflection, faces began to form. Dozens of them, half submerged, mouths open, whispering through the sound of falling rain. We're still here. It never stops raining down here. Don't listen when he calls your name. Nyla backed away until she hit the wall. The wallpaper was damp, soft under her palms. And then, from inside it, a sound began. Tap, tap, like someone gently knocking from within the wall itself. She turned her head, trembling, pressing her ear to the surface. At first it was only static, like a radio between stations. Then came a voice, deep, distant, familiar. I didn't die in the rain, Nayla. I became it. She froze. The wall pulsed under her touch. Tiny bubbles of water rose from the wallpaper, and each one reflected his face for a fraction of a second before bursting. You kept listening for me. You let it in. Now it knows your voice. The light flickered. The rain on the ceiling began to move, not fall, crawl. It gathered above her, forming a single dark satch, spreading across the plaster like a growing bruise. She grabbed her bag, desperate to run, but when she turned toward the exit, the hallway was gone. Just an endless corridor of dripping walls and echoes, and every reflection, every drop, was whispering her name now. Hundreds of voices, all hers, overlapping. Nyla, Nyla, Nyla. The water began rising around her ankles. She tried to scream, but the sound that left her throat was drowned in rain. She could feel hands, cold, liquid hands, pulling at her legs. When she looked down, she saw them. People, half-formed, transparent, their faces rippling in the current. And through it all, Aram's voice spoke again, right beside her ear, though no one was there. The rain remembers the ones who listen. The last thing she saw before the light went out was her reflection in the water, looking back at her and smiling. When I opened my eyes, the world was upside down. The rain wasn't falling anymore. It was rising, climbing toward the ceiling like smoke in reverse. Everything shimmered blue, as if I were underwater, but I could still breathe. The house looked the same, and yet older. Walls swollen with moisture, furniture draped in moss, portraits weeping dark water. And through the living room window, I saw it, the same tree where I found the tape recorder. Only now it was growing downward, its roots stretching into the black sky below. A voice called my name, soft, familiar. Nyla. I turned and saw myself, or something wearing my face. Her skin rippled like reflection on water. Her eyes were black mirrors. You listened too long, she whispered. Now you belong where the echoes are born. The rain outside stopped. Everything went silent. And then, one final drip echoed through the room. I looked down. The tape recorder floated in the air before me, spinning slowly. It clicked and began to play again. Nyla was never found. But sometimes, when it rains, she answers. The house sank quietly beneath the storm, swallowed by endless ripples, and the last sound that remained was her voice, soft, distant, and forever trapped beneath the water.